this awesome trick for drawing portraits and you're gonna be totally obsessed with it.
So here we go. You loved our portrait hack. That's how you get the sketch down. I'm just going to re-tape down these edges here because I want to apply more paint. I'm actually going to come into the background, the negative space around the portrait, and add some of the So Flat Golden Blue. I love their So Flat series. They're just amazing, and there's lots of pigment, so you only have to do one coat. And so yeah, see how that goes. Added that extra layer of watercolor. As you can see, it's very damp. The paper is buckling up in places. So that's called paper stretching. That's why we tape the edges, because the paper actually expands with the water, and then as it dries over a few hours, it retracts back down, and that's why we tape all these edges, because it will dry really nice and flat. Okay, so here I am coming in with some of that So Flat blue. The reason I tape my edges down is so I don't get any wobbling in the paper. That is a really great trick. Because when you're stretching paper, especially in the initial watercolor stage, your paper will expand. That's why it's called paper stretching. And it expands, and then as it dries, it retracts, and then the edges hold the paper down, and you'll get this nice flat surface. This is a watercolor paper, so it doesn't get as wobbly. In our portrait class, we talk a lot about papers. My personal favorite is the Stonehenge hot press paper, because it is so smooth, and that will allow me to get in there for the more detailed portraitures, and come in with pastels and pencil crayons, and get that nice skin texture look. This watercolor paper here is a little bit too textured, so I like to keep it in more of a loose style, and a more free, fun style, as opposed to those tighter, more detailed portraits. Oh, I'm loving how this blue is looking. Even now the paper's expanding a little bit. I can see from the sides when I'm coming in with this extra layer of acrylic. So I'm really glad I taped all the edges down, because it will expand and then retract down after it dries. Yeah, isn't this amazing? One layer only. Worth every penny, this paint. I'm gonna come in, and it contrasts with this yellow really nicely. I'm gonna come in here, just kind of loosely hit that edge, and then maybe come in around the portrait. I think I'll just leave that kind of loose feeling, so it blends in with the rest of the kind of feel of the artwork. Maybe come in here. It's so fun kind of playing with your composition and your color choices. And when you use your colors all around in your composition, it keeps the viewer from falling off of your painting. So it's fun to play that way. Maybe just come in a little bit right there. Even maybe in here a little bit. Yeah, that's really beautiful. Making art and choosing your composition is a bunch of accidentally on purpose marks, really. But this blue will really make some of these elements pop, and I can't wait to work into her portrait a little bit more and make that come alive as well. The thing about making art and portraiture, when you're not going for that high realism look, you can really use any color at your disposal, and you can just play and have fun. And things are just so cool in that way. It's the power of choice as a creative. And then you get this really neat thing that's never been made before. That is a superpower in itself, if you ask me. Creativity is your voice, your soul coming alive and speaking to the rest of the world. I'm loving how this is coming together. I likely won't use any blacks. I'll just stick with all of these neat tones of greens and aqua and turquoise and blues. Just adding these subtle little details to the areas. Always looking back, of course, at my reference. As you can see, like eyes and noses and lips are made up of tiny little marks that kind of all add up together, highlights and lowlights and just delicate pressure on your drawing tool. In some places there's no line at all, and that is the delicacy of portrait making, is knowing when a suggestion is enough. This is too dark in here. So moving back and forth between that balance and finding it. I will never use graphite in this because it doesn't mix well with my mixed media portrait technique. It can sometimes mix into, gray out, smudge into the paints, the watercolors, and it actually resists putting any pastels or pencil crayons over top of it. So say I drew this whole eye in graphite, well, I wouldn't be able to add any other materials over top, and I wouldn't be able to get highlights and more lowlights and skin color and pastels, and these portraits are a mix of all those things. Notice I'm turning my tool on its side to get these shaded areas. They don't require a line, and you can smudge with your finger or a smudging tool. The smudging tool has pastel on it from a previous. There you go. Okay, I'm going to come in with my So Flat acrylics again. This is one of my favorite colors, the cadmium primrose. It's so bright and it looks fabulous against this blue. For a yellow, wow. Like for me to come in and the first coat be this, give me this much coverage. For the first coat to give me this much coverage is crazy. I might do 2 coats, we'll see, but, and acrylic dries super duper fast, so I can just come in here with a second coat really quick. That's all it takes. Oh, I'm obsessed with it. It looks so good. I might add in some pattern work on top once this dries, we'll see. I remove the tape, but I've decided I want to come in and darken some of this areas a little bit more with some watercolor. So I just kind of let it flow naturally, because that's how the whole piece really was when we created it. But instead of those like accidental marks, these are more on purpose marks, I guess. And again, the paper will expand and retract because we have it taped down to the surface. And this is a bit of a cooler area, so I just want to keep it really light. But again, just a little bit darker so her features pop out a little bit more. I love just dabbing in random colors and see how they mix together. Like, why not red and green? And blue. Kind of made a purpley color, which was really pretty. Purple and green actually work really nicely together. And there's lots of aquas and greens and turquoises in her hair and skin, which I'm keeping the portrait really, really simple. So I'm not coming in like I normally would with pastels or pencil crayons. I'm just keeping it very simplified. I love the sketch, and sometimes you can just love the sketch and keep it that way. Again, using our color theory technique of bouncing the same shades in different areas, so then that keeps your viewer engaged and within your composition, right? Ooh, that was really green, but I kind of like it. I love watercolor painting because I love watercolor painting because you can just lose control with it. I don't like to control it. I like to see what it does. It's almost alive, which is really neat. As you can see, it kind of made its way up onto the portrait. So I have my brush and I just squeeze all the moisture out into like a little vacuum. And I vacuum up the watercolor. You can even resaturate a little bit. There we go. And again, squeeze it, get the water out, and vacuum it up a little bit. Lucky for me, this is a already pretty dark area in the portrait, so I'm kind of letting it seep in there anyways. It looks really cool. Ooh la la. Soften that edge a bit. Bring that down. Really pretty. Oh yeah. And moisture out and just kind of blend that line. It's a little paintbrush vacuum. Here we go. So our paper has once again expanded with the moisture of the watercolor, and I'm going to give it a few hours to dry out with the tape left on it, and then I'm going to come in and do some final details. Just going to add a little bit of subtle lines like I have on her face, which was on the jewelry on the original. So I'm just going to come in. She has these subtle, cool, kind of decorative lines along her face and the jewelry. I'm going to repeat that same kind of pattern down here. In design and in art, repetition of pattern and mark making really will make your piece come together. And I'm going to press a little bit harder using line sensitivity and then come off a little bit lighter. So you press a little bit harder in areas that you'd like to come forward, and then lighten up in areas that you'd like to fall back a bit more. It's something you can practice and it will really pay off in any sort of portraiture or figurative work. Oh, that's really gorgeous. I love that we added that. We have added that extra layer of watercolor. As you can see, it's very damp. The paper is buckling up in places. So that's called paper stretching. That's why we tape the edges, because the paper actually expands with the water, and then as it dries over a few hours, it retracts back down, and that's why we tape all these edges, because it will dry really nice and flat. That is our tip for having these beautiful backgrounds with acrylics and watercolors and not having that buckly wobbly paper after. So as you can see, I'm still gonna give it another hour or two, but it is coming out less wobbly. It is drying up, so we have our taped edges, and that means that the paper expanded when it's wet and then it retracted when it was down, and having your edges taped keeps it really, really flat. Yeah, really nice. Even if you do get a lot of wobbles and say your tape lifts while it's drying, you can actually resaturate your paper and retape your edges down, just lightly misting with the bottle, and then that will actually stretch your paper and then retract it back down again. It won't be super flat, but it will be flatter than if you let it dry fully with wobbles. As you can see, this piece is coming together quite nicely. I don't think I'm gonna add much else except for take this tape off. She looks gorgeous. Yeah. All right. I told you it would dry super flat because we've taped our edges to a hard, flat surface. You can build a drawing board out of MDF, and that's the perfect thing to tape your drawing to. If you don't want your tape to tear your paper, you can hit it with a warm blow dryer. I know my tape doesn't really rip this paper, so I'm good with taking it off. It comes off pretty smoothly, and voila, there we go. Looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm super happy with that. I'm gonna do some final touches and then she's all done. Look how gorgeous this is here, this detail. I kind of just let the watercolors go and magical accidents happen. And I love that little bit that kind of leaked up into her portrait in this really gorgeous way. So, oh, I just love happy accident.
Be sure to get our free mediums guide. The link is below. Like and subscribe for more, and stay tuned for our part 3 portraits hack. Thank you so much for being here. We sure do appreciate your time.